Muhammad Ali needs no introduction. He's worldwide, even more so after his death. Now imagine his presence just after his retirement. Boxing was in need of a new face, an ambassador who would carry the sport going forward. But there was one gaping problem. Following up Muhammad Ali looked to be impossible. I covered the shadow champs across heavyweight history, and the impact of Muhammad Ali around the world cast a shadow so heavy that it could even swallow that of the other people's champions before and after his time. The world just wasn't ready to let the greatest go, but they would have to. No one filled the attitude and role better of get over it, so what, than Ali's protege, the big black cloud, the Easton Assassin, the WBC heavyweight champion of the world, Larry Holmes. He spent the 70s as Ali's sparring partner, learning directly from the greatest, before making his own name with his 1978 wins over Ernie Shavers and Ken Norton respectively, with the Norton victory being one of the greatest championship bouts of all time. On the subject of his win over Norton, despite it being one for the ages and Larry's big moment, the boxing world remained fixated on the impending rematch between Ali and Spinks, in hopes that their hero would defy the odds and become the only ever three-time heavyweight champion. He did just that. Larry's moment was snuffed just like that. Ali held on to the WBA title for a while before announcing his retirement the following year, despite Larry insisting that he either fight for unification or retire. It was gone. No way to force the fans to love him by beating the greatest, or some thought. Ali came out of retirement in 1980 to attempt winning the title a fourth time against Holmes, and Larry seized the moment. It was no contest, as Holmes battered the people's champion. But this event actually turned the people on him further as he sank deeper into Ali's shadow. It even sparked a young heavyweight who would soon make waves on the division in his quest to get revenge for his idol, Ali. So now what? He won the title himself from Ali's kryptonite. No respect. He beat the man himself, the greatest of all time. No respect. Only thing left to do was keep on fighting, and keep fighting he did. Larry accumulated 20 title defenses over the next 5 years against solid competition, and acted as the benchmark for an entire sanctioning body's claim to legitimacy. Some claim Larry's dominance was against less than stellar opposition, and to an extent this is true when you compare his time to that of the 70s or the 90s. But how was he to control this? The best we can ever ask of any fighter is to fight the best of their time, and he did that. Here's a brief outline of those he beat that I feel earned the spotlight, not including those from before the Ali fight like Mike Weaver and Ernie Shavers. Trevor Berbick would go on to become a champion and have retired Ali. The drop-kick-worthy bad blood between he and Larry culminated in a unanimous decision win for the champ. Neon Leon Spinks dethroned Ali in 1978 and had a bit more clout than Larry at the time for merely being directly involved with Ali. Holmes easily dispatched the ex-champ when they met in 1981. Mr. Ronaldo Snipes was undefeated and even knocked Larry down in the 7th round of their bout, before the Easton Assassin stormed back to stop Snipes in the 11th. Bad blood ensued in the interviews as Snipes felt the bout was stopped too soon and that Holmes benefited from a long count when he was down. He continued on against the who's who of the division to minor success. Gentleman Jerry Cooney was undefeated and fast-tracked to the main event while being forced into the role of the Great White Hope by boxing promotion and fans, something even Ali never had to deal with. President Reagan had a phone ready to congratulate Cooney if he won, and Larry was introduced first despite being the champion. Larry derailed the Cooney hype train in a gallant display from both men, and Jerry never recovered from this loss, as his career never again reached such heights. Terrible Tim Witherspoon acted as the Ken Norton of sorts to Larry, standing toe-to-toe boxing ability-wise and giving Larry one of the toughest bouts of his career. Many felt that Witherspoon had earned the win, and Holmes appeared more human than ever. At the end of 1983, Larry relinquished the WBC title over a financial dispute regarding his payday from a fight with his mandatory, the Louisville Rage, or as he was known at the time, sensational Greg Page. James Bone Crusher Smith was on a 14-fight win streak and gave Frank Bruno his first loss. Larry took the fight for the money and came in 3 weeks after a hemorrhoid operation. Despite some stiff blows and a bad cut, Larry persevered to stop Smith on cuts. Carl "The Truth" Williams was undefeated and, like Witherspoon, fought arguably the best fight of his career against the aging Easton Assassin. This may be the most beat up Larry was after a fight too. Williams, the crowd, and many onlookers felt he should have won. Larry scored a big win here, especially considering he took the fight on 3 weeks' notice. The now 35-year-old champion was one win away from a historical milestone that would certainly force the boxing public to properly acknowledge him. Rocky Marciano's 49-0 undefeated record. His 21st title defense would be against undefeated, undisputed, light heavyweight champion Michael Jinx Spinks. In the build-up to the fight, the Marciano legacy was highlighted well, with The Rock's family getting involved. During training, Larry discovered he had a spinal injury linked to his right arm, and he noticeably held back the right hand during the bout. Spinks scored an upset over Holmes and was the new IBF and Alineo champion, 48-1, just one short. Larry got into it with Rocky Marciano's brother in a very controversial post-fight interview where he spoke his mind in regards to his exploits compared to those of Rocky's. It only worsened his image. Not only was he still in Ali's shadow, but he had permanently ensured he would be in Marciano's shadow with his comments and the loss for the tie. Larry lost the rematch to Spinks in greater controversy than the first bout and stepped away for 2 years. When he returned, the young heavyweight that he'd angered 9 years earlier with his battering of Ali had fulfilled his destiny and became the baddest man on the planet. Iron Mike Tyson had sent shockwaves through boxing with his knockout power and skill. So now, a third shadow had emerged as the boxing public adored Tyson and still detested the now 38-year-old ex-champion. Tyson became the only man to ever knock out Holmes and made good on his promise to Muhammad Ali, who was present and allegedly reminded Tyson before the fight began to get him for me. This concluded Larry's career in the 1980s. 48 straight wins, 20 title defenses, fought the best with no excuses to boot despite fighting while hurt. He's a shining example of a world-class champion, but never got his just dues because he didn't fit the image expected of a heavyweight champion. He returned in the 90s to decent success and finally gained some love with his upset over Ray Mercer and good showing against Evander Holyfield. The modern day has seen Larry Holmes finally gather some of the love and prestige he so rightfully earned, and I plan on continuing to push for this myself. Larry Holmes is one of the greatest, if not the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. One last note. The first bout between Holmes and Spinks was also significant in that it was another chapter in the history of heavyweight and light heavyweight champions locking horns. Spinks became the first man to accomplish the uncharted impossible of winning the heavyweight title while still reigning as light heavyweight champion. Even Archie Moore and Bob Foster couldn't pull that off. For a full timeline of heavyweight champs versus light heavyweight champs, see my video linked below. Speaking of said video, check it out along with the Shadow Champs and Larry Holmes editions of Best Career Year this week, before the release of part 2 of this docuseries. This Larry Holmes-centric episode is dedicated to the biggest Larry Holmes fan in the BoxingPedia community.